One body cam, kind of like body cam like thing, and a microphone so that you can see what I'm doing here more or less.
This video is also especially for those who like to see a different YouTube video than the usual standard. The Mutrain point and shoot is certainly not the design of a professional camera. It's probably more of a children's toy, but that's precisely why you should take it seriously and consider whether it's high quality, sustainable and sophisticated enough to be given to children. They are the ones who experience the world with truly open and heightened senses. You can use the time warp links shown here to go directly to the topics that are of particular interest to you. You will also find a picture and sound comparison of the camera. The Mutrain is available in white, sky blue, strawberry, milk pink and black, among other colors. Instead of a swiveling monitor, a wavy mirror is embedded on the front and serves a similar purpose. As soon as the mirror is being swiped down, the message "record every moment" disappears, revealing a particularly small lens instead, which is very reminiscent of the lenses embedded in inexpensive phones from third-party manufacturers. Nevertheless, there is even a photo flash next to it. A battery is built into the camera, which seems to last forever. A 32GB memory card is supplied from the outset. Even up to 128GB can be added. The camera menus and the only available camera sound, which can be dimmed off or switched off completely, are reminiscent of the early days of consumer electronics, the first mass-produced Game Boys and computer games from the Amiga and Commodore era. The entire user interface feels cumbersome. The camera focus, which is actually available, zooms forwards and backwards and then makes a decision, but is of course not always accurate. The camera can take photos with up to 48 megapixels. Insane. Perhaps it artificially adds extra pixels to achieve such numbers. It records videos with a maximum resolution of 1920 x 1080 pixels, the same as classic Full HD. The codec of the generated MP4 files is rather a funny one. In the camera itself, the original video recordings are played back correctly as filmed. However, when I play back the film files on Windows 11 after importing them via SD, the sound is played back in the original length, but the videos are played back simultaneously at least double speed, so that you can see a kind of time lapse during the first part of the playback. But from the middle of the playback, the last frame stops, and from then on you only hear the sound running out. This nevertheless creates an exciting experimental film experience that foregrounds the ephemeral nature of films, images and memories, and is in harmony with the timeless, washed-out visual footage generated by this camera. Surprisingly, the film files are then played back correctly in professional video editing software again, at original speed, and can be processed intuitively. However, I wonder whether children who are perhaps just starting out with complex processes such as digital editing of media content might be somewhat overwhelmed in this respect, and instead they may instantly assume that their precious film sequences might have somehow got corrupted on the way. And while we are about the blurred images, a few years ago, when I was still traveling between experimental film festivals as a breadwinning artist, I made a short film called Handy Movie using nothing but a cheap cell phone camera with super poor quality, which was then passed around at a few festivals. As I said, it was actually poor quality, but the specific appeal of this film lay precisely in the dancing point between invisible dream and fantasy. Here is a brief excerpt so that you can soak up the visual mood, but as always with movies, the main thing came from the sound anyway. Why am I telling you this whole thing here? Because I believe you can still conjure up a very similar mood with this Mutrain camera even in 2024, which is why I'm going to show you a minimal dream sequence now here in between, which I shot exclusively with the Mutrain. It's the final countdown. Da 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 da. It's the final countdown. Sorry. So. But now, back to the camera's technical data. Interestingly, the camera's submenus offer different image profiles, different degrees of sharpness, resolutions, a certain range of white balances, a self-timer and similar gimmicks. But when it comes to the actual essence of photography, the adjustment of focus, aperture and shutter speed, there is no manual option. This may be due to the fact that the lens only provides a single aperture, but the focus point could perhaps have been made adjustable manually, or the exposure time, only a certain degree of overexposure and underexposure can be set. Such a camera reducing itself to the essential elements of photography and which instead completely dispenses with the possibility of filming would have been more interesting for me. On the other hand, you would then have nothing but the digital version of an analog camera in your hand. Perhaps there is another way of looking at it. The high proportion of sometimes highly inadequate automatic pre-selection as well as the limited options are somehow reminiscent of the concept of lomography developed in the Soviet Union once upon a time. With digital means, the unpredictable will now also be transferred to the medium of video in this way. Now let's compare the camera to some other contemporary but much more expensive cameras and microphones.
This is a vlogging test. We are comparing three interesting cameras. On the left, to my mind, I would say one of the best action cams of the world. It's recording in 4K 30p right now and HDR mode is activated. To the right there is another interesting, very versatile camera. You see her sister up here. This one can record 4K 30p already, but that one here, which is the previous model, will only record up to 2.7K at 30p. So quality between those two cameras might be already different. And in the center we have a very affordable and very interesting camera, which does not even have a additional screen, only one on the back side. But there is this interesting mirror integrated inside this camera. And it is only recording up to 1080p at 30 pictures per second. That's at least what they say in their technical data. So you see like three very different cameras with very different prices. And yeah, sound-wise, this might also be an interesting comparison, because I have the DJI Mic 2 up here on my head. But we can also compare it to the internal microphones. So listen carefully to the heights, to the lows. Is the wind kind of destructing the sound? Listen carefully to the heights, to the lows. Is the wind kind of destructing the sound? Listen carefully to the heights, to the lows. Is the wind kind of destructing the sound? Listen carefully to the heights, to the lows. Is the wind kind of destructing the sound? Listen carefully to the heights, to the lows. Is the wind kind of destructing the sound? Und
summary. For the unbeatable price of a conventional memory card, in addition to 32 GB, you also get a digital LOMO-like photo camera and experimental film camera, which you don't even have to switch on to look at yourself in psychedelic-looking distorted image on a plastic mirror. And who doesn't enjoy witnessing the creation of something unforeseeable? I have already explained everything else, so please rewind for further details. The technical data can be found in the datasheet, which is also shown here. Finally, let's take a look at how you might imagine an afternoon of photography in the forest, but beware, some of the pictures may not quite match what you actually see to keep the fun going. Nevertheless, every single picture was originally taken with the Mutrain.
I think you should see it in the mirror now. There is this one body cam, kind of like body cam-like thing, and a microphone, so that you can see what I'm doing here more or less.
And this is how you turn on the camera. It will switch on by itself. And what happens is when you press the menu button, then automatically you enter the video mode. This will not be permanent, unfortunately. Then there is a browser where you can search for photos or videos separately. Now we go back. So I will try to explain you the workflow now. Imagine I would be walking around in this woods here. So let's say I want to take a photo. I press the menu button and I keep it pressed. I don't want burst shoot. I don't want timer. I will keep the exposure as it is. The white balance I was already setting to daylight, quality high. And then let's say the sharpness, I will keep it as it is. And then here is the effect menu. This is set to normal now, black and white, green. But if you scroll down further, there will be blue, warm colors, cold colors, vivid colors. Then there is also the so-called undertone, which basically reduces the saturation, and there is also a negative effect. So now I am going to do photos upwards, and I will be in normal effect. Pressing one more, then there will be the main menu, and then pressing one more again. Then you have again these settings here. So actually I have to take out face detection, because otherwise he's going to try to search for faces, whatever that means to the little AI inside here, in case it is an AI. So now I will point upwards and I will do one normal photo or a standard mode photo. So this was number one. I'm going to recall this menu. We are going to compare it to black and white now. It's not really like a black and white in sense of monochrome. It's more like a poster effect, as far as I remember. It's the same style, like maybe they had it in the 80s somehow. So then let me press one more. I will go down using the down arrow to this effect menu. Sorry, I ended up in the camera menus because I don't want to record a video. The menu is actually not so intuitive. Again, video. This is nonsense. Let me check. Okay, so now I press menu one more and menu one more. So now we are in photo mode. I press and keep it pressed. So now we go to the menus here. I'm not going to show you all these kind of effects. We had already black and white, but I'm going to choose between red, green and blue. I will take the blue version here. And if I take this photo, then of course it's going to look tinted in blue color. Doesn't really make sense in this context anyway. So I keep menu button pressed to call the menu. I go to the effects again. And instead of the blue effect, now I'm going to choose the warm colors. This could be really interesting, how the differences are. Same scenery again, but now using warm colors. So maybe it's going to boost the yellows a little bit. Then keep menu pressed. All the effects again. Use the cold colors instead. So here now you see the cold colors. I don't know if that makes such a big difference, but actually it does if you look here. So keep this pressed again. We go to the effects, we press OK. Now it shows vivid, so this is now vivid colors. Oh, I see. This vivid colors, this is pretty much intense actually. Then you have to wait for the focus to find really the motive. And actually when I hold the camera down here, really interesting, these vivid colors, they make such a big difference. It's a little bit overdone. Maybe it's also nice to compare down here. So next we're going to have a look at what else is available. Ah, the undertone. Sounds very like the Undertaker, you know. But it's just like kind of reduced color set. Less saturation here. And I'm going to do also a photo of the floor here. Yeah, pretty much strong reduced colors. And then last option we have, this is the negative effect, and most probably it's going to invert all colors. That's my suggestion here. Yeah, and this is exactly what happens. And on the floor we were going to do another trial. So now we were checking all the color effects. I think when you stay with undertone, actually I want to explain you that all these effects, they are also available in video mode. So for example, if you enter video mode now, then you go to this effects menu and you call it up. Then here you see normal, red, green, undertone, negative. So all those effects are also available in video mode. But when we are now in video mode, then I think it's much more interesting to record something like a slow act. Here it's called slow act. So like slow motion modus instead of the standard 1080p recording. Maybe, I'm not sure. It's possible to put the camera on here, but this is not really straight. I'm not sure if this is going to function. Let's try. No, it's sliding away. That was pointless. So maybe we're going to choose this place here. I put my backpack down. I'm going to somehow install this camera. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it's not going to be too fragile. So let's do this slow act now here. I'm already recording. And here we are having a look at the slow motion material. Doesn't explain anything about how much slow motion it is. And when I stop now, then unfortunately there is no sound for confirmation that the recording is stopped. And then here we have the alternative, which is time-lapse mode. Also in time-lapse it doesn't say how few frames per second or per minute it's recording now. So let's just click the button. Oh, sorry. There was a little piece of grass in front of the lens. So one more.
I'm turning myself, and I'm going to loop this recording now because, you know, it was like so short when I recorded during 2 minutes. So this time lapse should be played back very fast, of course. Okay. So I think we managed. I hope it was interesting for you to see all this stuff.